Almost started the show without turning my microphone on, but I got this figured out. Fear not, everyone. I am here. I know that's what you guys were all super worried about. I am here to start the off season. Hi, everybody. It's Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Besbris. I don't know how many of you guys are going to be watching these shows through the off season or listening to them, but I don't care. I'm going to do them. I am also very happy to announce that later on today, I'm going to be getting on the horn with my good buddy Adam King. And we're going to be walking through the process so that he can get his shows up for you guys as well. It's a big day. The Young Man Squad Fantasy Basketball Podcast with Noah Rubin, that'll be coming out with its first episode next week on all Old Man Squad channels. And those guys will tell you more about their shows as well as we do various collaborations through the offseason and all the way through, hopefully, the rest of time. Thank you all. I want to start the show by just thanking everybody for watching all season long. This was, by all accounts, the most fun that I've ever had during a fantasy basketball season. It stacks up against like one of the first 1 or 2 years over at Hoop Ball. I don't know if you guys remember Hoop Ball. It was just like getting my feet wet and the excitement of it. And so I got to sort of reclaim a little bit of that excitement by launching Old Man Squad. And the results, I think, basically bore that fruit, more or less. I don't know if I use that expression right, but this was the most profitable season I've ever had running my own teams. My cousin and I, we bankroll these teams together. And so I'm texting him yesterday as the games were wrapping up, and he's celebrating, and I'm celebrating. And now I can go buy myself a new laptop because the junk laptop I have in this bag here, which is only like 5 years old, but is absolute trash. It's never worked right. It's incredibly slow. It takes like 4 hours to update when I turn it on after a couple of weeks, which is just like, what are we doing here? So that was amazing from a personal side. From a professional side, the YouTube page getting over 7,000 subs in year one is insane. I worked my tail off at the old spot, and I couldn't get that place up to 6,000 over half a decade. That's you guys. You guys did that. And then the pod, as expected, like that was the easiest part of it, was just transferring, trying to get people to come over and find the new show. But it's been amazing. So now we ask ourselves the very important and valuable question: what the hell are we going to do for the next couple of months? We've got the playoffs, play-ins, starting tomorrow. I think as soon as tomorrow, but that's not really fantasy relevant. King is hosting a playoff league. If you guys are interested in that, it's a set it and forget it playoff league. But you guys don't need me to do a show on that stuff, because once you draft a team, you set it and you forget it. So like if you really wanted one, I would say, hey, just draft superstars and then the players you think are going to go to the deepest in the playoffs, because like you get an extra 7 or 9 ball games out of somebody. That's a really big deal over the guy who puts up more numbers in, gets wiped out in 5 days. There you go. There's your playoff league strategy. So what I thought might be kind of fun, and you guys know what we usually do this time of year, and if you don't actually, if you're relatively new, what we generally do around now and through not the entirety of the rest of April, but through a pretty good chunk of it, is lessons learned. To me, that is the most important thing we do before free agency hits. So like, we're talking 2.5 months right now. Free agency, we got the rest of April, May, and June. Then free agency in July. That's going to be a big series of shows. And that changes the complexion of how we draft teams quite a bit. You could talk about the draft, I guess, but like how many rookies are going to be relevant? You might take a couple of guys after 100 and hope that they pan out. Unless there's a Wemby that comes along. I guess Cooper Flag, he might go earlier. So lessons learned is probably the second most important thing we're going to do between now and when leagues open. But I'd like to take a little bit of a different tack on it. Instead of the usual one, which is like, I did a show on a lesson learned. And we're going to do those. But first, and you guys have asked about this a bunch of times over the years, and I hadn't really figured out the right way to do it. But today, I want to show you guys, and tomorrow, I want this to be 2 shows. I want to go through my results, and we can start to take away a few smaller lessons from that before we do full shows on individual big lessons that you could take away from an entire fantasy season and then how to apply that going forward. So today, we're going to look at Dano's wins. I'm speaking in the third person just for one sentence. We're going to look at leagues where I won and what went right and what went wrong. What could have maybe I have done better. Tomorrow, we're going to look at leagues where I lost. And that is going to be perhaps more illuminating, but you can learn things from wins and losses. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. Let's take a look at my keeper league. And we can spend the least amount of time on this one because the settings are screwball and like a lot of what went right this year was stuff that I did last year. But that's my team in first place. I'm Quato. If you guys don't remember who Quato is, it is an obscure reference to a character in Total Recall. It is the weird little alien that comes out of the belly of one of the good guys, one of the rebellion leaders on Mars. I name my teams very strange things. This is also the most important league for me. It's the highest buy-in league, so it's the one where I really wanted to focus on it. If you wanted to see, and I thought the other thing we could do here was look at draft results. Let's take a look at Quato's draft. We'll go by team. I had the third pick, and there you go. You can see over on the right side of your screen. I'll read the names off for those that are listening to the pod. Third pick, I took Shea. Second pick, I took LeBron. Third pick, I took LaMelo. I had traded some random stuff the previous year to get an additional third-round pick, and so at the end of the third round, I took Jimmy Butler, which, I mean, fine. I did not have a fourth round. Oh, no. Yes, my fourth round pick, but my fifth pick overall was Jared Allen. Fifth round pick was Kawhi Leonard. Sixth round pick was Jordan Poole. Seventh round pick was Jakob Poeltl. I did not have an eighth round pick. Ninth round, Kobe White was a keeper. 10th round, Jalen Duren was a keeper. 11th round, I took Jonathan Isaac. 12th round, Jalen Johnson was a keeper. 13, Tari Eason. 14, Kevin Porter Jr. And 15th, Khalil Ware. And you can see what went right and wrong in this league. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is obviously a right. LeBron went quite well. LaMelo was meh. Didn't. And Jimmy Butler, both of those were sort of meh picks in the late 20s and early 30s. Jared Allen was very good. Kawhi Leonard ended up finishing the year super strong, and that was also a pick kind of looking towards the future as, again, I think he was my sixth pick, but he was in the fifth round. I could keep Kawhi Leonard at a third-round price next year if I wanted to, so that was part of the equation there. Jordan Poole and Jakob Poeltl both went well. Kobe White was a great keeper. Jalen Duren started poorly and ended up as an amazing keeper. Jalen Johnson was going to be great, and then he got hurt. Tari Eason was an excellent pick late. I dropped Khalil Ware because I'm a ding-dong, and then someone else picked him up. So how, I guess is the question, how did I run away with this league? Because it was a bit of a beatdown at the end. 81.5 points for me. 74.5 was the second place team. I want to point at two things on your screen. Field goal percent, free throw percent. Number one in both of those. That's the difference, because other teams had pretty good numbers in the counting categories. But if you look at the difference between my team and the team in second place, I got 24 points on percentages, and the team in second place got 16. I won this league by 7 points. The gap in what we got, and this is Roto discussion right now, the gap in what we got in percentages was 8 points. That was the reason I won this league. Hunt percentages. Try not to get guys that are going to tank your percentages. And that was the sort of the big win for my team. And frankly, if Jalen Johnson doesn't go down, I mean, maybe my team is better in blocks than getting 7 points, but free throw percent would have been lower. So it sort of balanced itself out. Shea and LeBron, those guys off to an incredible start. Like, that combination was so good that, yeah, I mean, my team was probably not going to be all that great at three-pointers, and you can see how that was my weakest category outside of turnovers. Certainly with LaMelo missing half the season and then Jimmy Butler as my next pick. Like, I had one guy in my first 5 or 6 picks that actually hit three-pointers, and a couple of guys later that floated it in White and Jordan Poole. So what are the lessons learned from this one? A lesson learned is one that I've talked about a lot in the past, and that is win percentages. In Roto leagues, attack them hard and attack them in your draft. And if you can avoid the hard punt guys in those two categories, you can really do a lot of damage. LaMelo Ball, you could argue, would be kind of a punt field goal guy, but with Shea, LeBron, and Butler and Jared Allen as the four guys sandwiched around him, it wasn't something I had to worry about all that much. And then I went Kawhi Leonard, who's a high percentages guy. Jakob Poeltl was kind of my only, what you call, quote unquote, bad foul shooter. But Shea and Butler and White and Poole later on did enough where I was able to stay at the top of the board in that as well. Quickly, you guys can see what my team looked like at the end of the season. Other things that I did towards the end, picked up Davion Mitchell. I picked up Colin Sexton kind of late in the year. There were some weird drops that went on. Christian Brown was a guy I added the first day of the season, and he was an excellent percentages guy, so he just kind of built into that. Luke Cornett was a pickup just for the last week, so don't pay much attention to that one. Kelly Olynyk I picked up when he started doing stuff in New Orleans. I did not want to drop him because he is actually a potential keeper for next year as well. So I didn't make too many massive adjustments over the course of the season. You could see Olynyk was an ad mid-year that I actually used for a while. Brown was an ad for the entire season. Davion Mitchell was kind of like the last month, and Colin Sexton was around the last month as well. I don't remember why he got dumped, but I think somebody just got tired of the sort of on again, off again stuff. What I can't remember and what I don't have in front of me is which of these guys I can keep another season. I think I have to dump Jalen Duren because I think I've kept him twice. But I'm pretty sure that I can keep Jalen Johnson another year. And I think I can keep Kobe White, but it's going to be at a slightly steeper price. So we'll think about that stuff going forward. That one I didn't want to spend a ton of time on. I guess we already did a little. Let's go to a head-to-head league because I know you guys are interested in this. This is a head-to-head league with our good buddy Vince Miracle, and I won it. And you can see my team name is Richard Belding. So last team was Quato, a goofball Total Recall reference. Please tell me those of you watching or listening to this show know who Richard Belding is. If you don't, I'm going to be very upset with you. If you do, feel free to comment on the YouTube page, I guess, or just hit me up on Twitter at Dan Bespris. Here, let's take a look at this one. And you can see I squeaked my way through here with a 5-4 win in the finals. I talked about this team on this show a bit during the playoffs because it was a weird team by the end of the year. Here's the draft. I had the 6th pick. I went Halliburton in the first round, Kevin Durant in the second round. Once I had Halliburton, I thought, all right, if I want to punt points, I could do it. But I got to be good in the percentages. That's going to have to be one of my tactics here. So I went KD because that's again, you're getting across the board stuff. I got a good assist guy right out of the shoot and one that shoots a pretty good field goal percent. Let's lean into the free throw field goal build. Kevin Durant's going to give me basically everything that's not assists. Not a particularly good rebounding team so far. Third round, Jalen Williams was there at 30, so I just did it because I wanted Jalen Williams, and I figured, again, somebody who's going to be pretty good at a lot of things. Fourth round, I went Miles Turner. Again, I'm looking at a big man who's not a bad foul shooter. I didn't want to tank my free throw shooting yet. Fifth round, I went Jared Allen, another big man who's not a bad foul shooter, good at field goal percent. Sixth round is where I kind of lost the thread a little bit on this draft, and I went Walker Kessler, mostly because I just thought he was going to have a massive season, which he did while he was playing. But now all of a sudden, I have slight free throw issues developing on this club. I went Drew Holiday at 78. That was just a straight up bad pick. That one, he's not on my team for most of this season. Draymond Green at 91 turned out to be a perfectly reasonable one. Again, now I'm starting to lean more into the punt points build, if you guys couldn't see that. Miles Turner was a little bit of a punt points grab. Jared Allen is, Walker Kessler is, Drew Holiday was, Draymond Green was. I took Onyeka Okongwu at 102, and sadly, I did end up dropping him early in the season when he was playing 19 minutes again. Tyus Jones at 115, Mike Conley at 126, Dyson Daniels at 139, and now you're into the dregs. Andre Drummond at 150, but Tari Eason at 163 ended up as a really nice pick. So at the end of this draft, I was looking very hard at punt points guys. I was like, all right, if I'm going to punt points, I want efficient point guard types. So that's why I went on this run here of Tyus Jones, Mike Conley, and Dyson Daniels. One of those guys obviously stuck more than the others. And then you get into the deep flyers, and that's, I went Tari Eason for the sort of defensive stat stuff. If you'd like to see where my team finished compared to where it started, it's pretty different looking. There's Drew Holiday. He's still there, but he was dropped and then re-added again. And this is hard because at the end of a head-to-head league, you're going to drop a lot of guys. And I'll try to point out some of the names as we went through. I had Jared Butler for the fantasy finals. I had Isaiah Collier. And that one was one that I had for like 2 months. Dyson Daniels, Tari Eason were still there. Keyshawn George on the Wizards I had on this team. Jared Allen. I traded Miles Turner for Jalen Duren halfway through the year. It was not a buy low on Duren. It was very much a one-for-one kind of like, my team is horrible at rebounding, and it's turning out my team is much worse at free throw shooting than I realized. You want Miles Turner, and then they wanted blocks more. I wanted rebounds more, and field goal percent. It was just a one-to-one swap. I picked up Donovan Clingan when he started to do a little bit more. Walker Kessler, Halliburton. KD was obviously on my team until the last 2 days. He didn't play over the final weekend. Jackson Hayes was an ad during the playoffs, and then Draymond Green was on the team throughout the year. This team was weird in terms of like, what can we learn from it? Because partway through the season, actually, you know what would be more interesting here? If we go to the team stats page on Yahoo, and you can see what my team ended up being good at. Field goal percent, I ended up very, very good. Free throw percent, I ended up terrible, which was kind of surprising because coming out of the draft, I was like, all right, well, Walker Kessler's a bad foul shooter, but like Halliburton's a pretty good one. Kevin Durant is a pretty good one. Jared Allen's not a bad foul shooting center. Same with Miles Turner. I felt like my team could be okay at free throw. And then, Dyson Daniels wasn't very good, and Tari Eason's not very good. And so it just collapsed because KD, who had, by the way, a very good season overall, was at 84% at the line. And I think I kind of thought he'd be 85, 86, 87, or that was a hope at least. And so the good that I got from Halliburton was pretty much wiped out immediately by Walker Kessler's 52%. And then some. So Kessler alone kind of tanked the free throw number. And that was why midway through the year, I was like, all right, this team is like, I don't want to be middling to sub-middling in a category. My team is not a good three-point shooting team outside of Halliburton, and then I was getting some from Miles Turner. Like, you saw the team I drafted. Those guys didn't hit three-pointers. My team was a punt points team right out of the chute, so that was an obvious one. So I started to look at the team and say, what is my team pretty good at? My team was very good at steals. My team was pretty good at blocks. I would say very good at blocks. My team was decent at rebounds, but not great. Decent at field goal percent, but not great. Terrible at points. Meh, sub-meh at threes and free throw percent. And assists was pretty good. I did, I was able to collect some assists there between Halliburton and then just like guys along the way. So that's why I swung that trade from Miles Turner for Jalen Duren, which was like all about fit. My team got better at field goal percent, went from being decent to good. My team went from decent at rebounds to good. My team, it didn't change steals or blocks, all that. Blocks actually got a tiny bit worse, but I had such a cushion there that it didn't really matter. And got worse at points and three-pointers, but I was already losing those. So I took two categories that I was losing most of the time, and I turned them into two categories I was losing basically all of the time. But it took categories that I was winning some of the time and turned them into categories I won more of the time. And so when the playoffs came around, and this was the numbers that I was working with, I was like, all right, I'm punting free throw, threes, and points. And I became a very big, heavy team that also wanted to win assists and steals. So it was a bigs team that was trying to win two guard-ish categories, but not the scoring kind. And then turnovers was sort of a toss-up. So now we can look at the last matchup. Let's see if I can pull this up here. Oh, no, that's a bye week. Don't show me the bye week. I want to see, what happened? Why isn't it showing me the finals anymore? There we go. There's the finals. You can see, what did I do? Well, I did not win blocks, which is extremely surprising. And my team had kind of a down blocks week, but I won field goal percent, rebounds, assists, steals, and turnovers. I needed to win 5 of the 6 categories that I was hard charging. Why did I not win blocks on that final week? Well, because Donovan Clingan only had 3. Jared Allen only had 3. I got 10 out of Draymond Green and 8 out of Walker Kessler, but 1 out of Mitchell Robinson, 1 out of Kevin Durant. And a lot of guys that I was counting on to get like 3 or 4 got 1. shout out to my opponent because he had guys that got more blocks than I expected. He got 8 out of Mark Williams, 7 out of Khalil Ware, 5 from Keldon Johnson. Where the hell did that come from? Out of the blue. 3 from Moses Moody. He only got 1 out of JJJ. I thought when he wasn't getting blocks, I was in in shape. 3 out of Day'Ron Sharp, 4 from Eve Missy. I thought I had that category. I didn't have it. Luckily, turnovers was the one that flipped my way, and that's how I won the title in this league. All right, so what do we learn from this one? And we might not get through all. This may end up being a 3 or 4 episode series instead of 2. What did I learn? I learned to kind of trust my instinct on it. And it's also something we've talked about a lot on the show over the years, which is as your head-to-head season goes, don't go crazy at the beginning with, people are always like, oh, I'm going to punt, 3 or 4 things on draft night. The problem with that method is you might not know exactly what you're going to get out of a guy. Like, okay, what if I started my team with Halliburton, Kevin Durant, and, I ended up with a few big men in there, and I was like, all right, what if I don't care that much about rebounds? I don't know. Like, what if after my first 3 picks, I was like, all right, I'm going to punt rebounds? Because I had Halliburton, who gets 3.5, Kevin Durant, who got 6, and Jalen Williams, who had 5. I could have very easily been a punt rebounds team at that point because Jalen Williams ended up with center eligibility. Like, I could have just gone the other way. And instead, I stuck it through. I didn't decide on a punt after 3 picks, and ended up it completely altered what I was able to do throughout the season, because after, call it like 12 weeks or so, 2 to 3 months, somewhere in that neck of the woods, I was able to assess my team and say, all right, this is what my team actually is, because my team was way worse at free throw shooting than I expected. And I don't want to say way better at some stuff than they were good at the things that I expected. But like my team was a 75% foul shooting team. It was bad. I didn't think it was going to be that bad, but it was that bad. And it was better than that before I went into the hard free throw punt as the year went on. But that's why partway through your head-to-head year, you lean into the strengths. Punting 3 categories is very reasonable come playoff time in your head-to-head league. I wouldn't punt 4. I think that's a bit much, because if anything goes wrong, like if I punted 4 categories and I lost blocks, which I thought I had blocks wrapped up against this dude, and I didn't, I would have lost the league. And you can see by looking at the totals, like, yeah, if the totals bear out, my number in steals was almost 200 more than any other team in this entire league. And my blocks was a solid like 15% higher than any other team when you look at all the totals together. But I lost blocks in the finals, and I still won because I won turnovers, the category that was sort of the coin flip. I wasn't punting it. I was kind of ignoring it a little bit, but I wasn't punting it. So I think the lessons here are punting 3 categories, good. Punting 1, probably not enough in a head-to-head playoff situation. 2's totally fine. 4 is probably a little bit too many. And don't punt more than 1 thing on draft night. I was punting points basically from the minute I drafted Tyrese Halliburton, which I didn't have to do because I have another league where I ended up with Halliburton and I think I won points, and that might be the other one we look at on today's show. But don't like mush yourself into that one lane. Because again, if I had decided that I was punting steals or assists or rebounds or blocks or anything like that at the end of this draft, I wouldn't have taken Tari Eason. I might not have taken Dyson Daniels. There were critical picks I made late in this draft. And frankly, I know Tyus Jones ended up being awful the second half of the season, but he was great for my team the first half. And so you screw yourself over if you force your late picks into this narrow bucket of player type and you give yourself so few outs. What if your first rounder goes down? I don't want this is a common thing. AD missed 30 games. Luka missed 30 games. Dame missed 25 games. He wasn't a first rounder, I guess. Who else was drafted in the first round that missed a crap ton of time? Wemby missed 35 games. You could have very easily drafted a first rounder, built your whole team around their 5 best categories. And if you lose that player, you're done. You're done. Let's look at one more league on today's show before we wrap things up. It's the other one. These are my 3 first places out of 10 cash leagues. And then there was a pair of thirds. That's what we'll look at tomorrow. And then maybe we'll also get into some of we'll get into the one, well, actually, there were technically 3 third places, but one of them didn't matter. That was a head-to-head league. This is one more Roto league. So this team, and this is one we talked about a bunch last week on the podcast, because this was a Roto league where I talked a lot about like what you should do at the very end of the season. Look at what happened on the last day. I was up 79-78 over Flying Mellow. I gained 3 points on the last day, Sunday, and Flying Mellow gained 2. If I only gained 1, we would have tied for first place, and I had to go hard. You guys remember what we talked about with this team? This is the club where I said, I looked at all the numbers, and I was like, the only category where I can make headway is 3-pointers. Look at this lineup I trotted out on the last day of games. Well, Devin, I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4. I ended up with like 6 guys out. Despite the fact that I picked up half the free agents in the universe, I still couldn't field the team of all 10 players. I got to zoom out a tiny bit. Lonnie Walker got 8. Antonio Reeves somehow got 0. Bryce Sensabaugh 6. Hauser 4. Herder 5. Jokic 3. Vukcevic 4. Beasley 7. And Harrison Barnes 2. My team hit 39 3-pointers on the last day of the regular season. I did not care about a single other category. I just heavy lifted threes. I dropped half my team to get Barnes and Beasley and Vukcevic and Hauser and Sensabaugh and Reeves and Walker over the final week. And those guys did everything. So that was the big lesson from this team. If you guys want to know how we got to this point, you can look at my draft. We'll go back. I had the number 1 pick in this one. So great. I went Jokic 1, Booker 2, LeBron 3. That was a really nice start. Gobert 4, DeMar 5, Poole 6, D'Lo 7, womp womp. Bogdanovich 8. Oh no. Pirtle 9, Middleton 10. After I told everybody not to do it, I did it because he was still there at 120, and I regretted it the whole year. Okongwu 121, Daniels 144, and Jonathan Isaac 145. So that one didn't work. But my 9th round pick was a good one. My 11th round pick was a good one. My 12th round pick was a great one. This team was basically cruising in the top 3 pretty much the entire year. And partway through the season, you guys might remember I talked about this. Somebody offered me Halliburton for Pirtle. It was like a month and a half in when Halliburton was number 60 and Pirtle was number 35. And I was like, oh, yes, I'm going to do that. Because you could see, I don't know if I had Halliburton. There's Halliburton. It wouldn't let me drop Halliburton, LeBron, Jokic, or Booker. And I wanted to drop 3 of those guys because they had been ruled out for Sunday. But Yahoo's can't cut list, I couldn't cut them. And that's why I ended up having to start one stupid player that didn't even play. In any event, we don't need to worry about that. I got Halliburton in this league, and I'm pretty sure I won points, or I was second in points. No, I was number 1. So you don't have to punt points with Halliburton, but he kind of needs to fall into your lap for Jakob Poeltl if you're going to do it. Once I had Jokic and Halliburton together, I knew that assists were locked up. Again, like big lesson here. I had 82 points. The team right behind me had 80. The team behind me did better than me on the 7 counting stats, but I got 20 points in percentages and they got 14. A 6-point gap there in a league I won by 2. It was colossal. Percentages are so critical. In terms of other lessons here, like the big one obviously was doing the something comes sliding under the door to the bedroom. The big lesson in this league was looking to see where you can gain points at the end of the year. Because my other Roto league that we talked about, the keeper one, I was 8 points out in front. So I almost wasn't paying attention the final week. I was just auto starting. I already knew I had that one in the bag. This one, I was in second place or third place pretty much the entire year. I was in first place the last week. That was it. Yes, I was, behind in games played, so I was able to gain a little bit of ground there. But the real damage was done because I jumped from, I think, 2 points in threes to 6 points in threes. That was the difference. I was 2 points behind, and then I ended up 2 points ahead. All because of three-pointers, and none of the other categories moved for my team over the final 5 or 6 days. Only three-pointers. Everything else stayed exactly the same. And that's why you have to be watching your games cap in Roto. You have to be watching who's in front of you and behind you in each individual category, and then just attack it. Let's look at the transactions list for my team alone is beyond silly. You guys, I hope will find this somewhat entertaining. Where's my team? There's my club. So I dropped Jordan Poole for Vucevic. I dropped Christian Brown for Sam Hauser. AJ Green and Whitehead. Those guys were guys I had picked up. I dropped Donovan Clingan for AJ Green, who I then dropped for Bryce Sensabaugh. I dropped DeMar DeRozan for, it ended up being for Harrison Barnes. I dropped Rudy Gobert for Bobby Portis because Portis, I figured, had a better shot to hit three-pointers than Gobert. I dropped, how did I end with Lonnie Walker? I had Obi Toppin on my team, but who did I dump together? I dropped Kelly Olynyk in there. That ended up with Clingan, then Clingan turned into something else. Lonnie Walker became Sam Hauser, and then I ended up back with Walker again. Oh, I dropped D'Lo and Scottie Pippen Jr. to get to Malik Beasley. This was the path that my team took to get to these spots. How did I end up with Yusuf Nurkic? Anyway, I dropped like 5 or 6 of my regulars to end up with guys that just shot a ton of three-pointers. And I know we're sort of moseying through this stuff. I'm fully aware that this is not a super organized podcast, but that's the way the offseason goes for me. These are not going to be super organized shows. I have a rough idea of what I want to talk about, and we're just going to go through it piece by piece. And as things hit my brain, then we're going to talk about them. I totally forgot to tell you guys about our pals over at MyBookie. The Masters are over. Yes, UFC 314 is over as well. So, yeah, okay, you can't get down on that stuff. But they've got everything going on. They'll have your NBA playoffs and play-ins that start this week. You got baseball, you got NBA, you got futures on other sports. You've got hockey going on right now. All of that is available to you over at MyBookie. Deposit any amount, $50 up to $2,000, and get yourself a deposit match bonus when you use our promo code MM50. That promo code is built on the idea of March Madness, but it's still the same one. MM50. MM50 is the promo code to get a half match deposit bonus. You don't need to bet to get it either. When you make the deposit, the bonus will drop in there. It's just bonus cash right away. So if you got a read on anything coming up, and we'll look, there's some playoff stuff that we may want to get down on, but I don't think I'm going to do it on the podcast. I might just shout it into the air here at home and see if anybody hears me, because there are some interesting playoff matchups to be had, and you can check them all out over at MyBookie, because they were a partner of ours a long time ago. It's cool to be back with them again. And just wait on those odds boosts, man. Hopefully you guys took advantage of the UFC 314 odds boost on Michael Chandler over the weekend as well. Admittedly, I don't know how that went. I'm assuming that with odd boosts, it probably went well. They usually do. 70 to 90% of the time, they work well. MyBookie, MM50. Sign up today. Move your betting over to MyBookie. That's what we tell you here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball and the Believe Podcast Network. These are the 3 leagues where I got first place. Your lessons that we took away from them are in this most recent one. Attack the categories that you can win. In the first and last one, attack percentages in your Roto league. In the middle one, lean into your strengths, punting 2 or 3 categories as you go into your head-to-head playoffs. Probably not as many as 4, more than 0 or 1. Don't punt a ton of categories on draft night, or you're going to make your avenue to victory extremely narrow. It's doable. I'm not saying it's impossible. It can be done. My good buddy Kingy, who we're going to talk together all off season long, is a big man punt expert. He punts 4 categories regularly. I just think it's so hard to punt 4 on draft night and see that team all the way through, because you then have to basically win 5-4 every single week to even get a half decent seed in your playoff matchup. Tomorrow, we're going to look at the 2 teams that I got third place and got money for. The one team where I ended up losing in the semifinals and did not get any money. And we'll see if we get into my straight up loser teams after that. Those are going to be Those will be interesting. And I can already tell you what I screwed up in a few of them. Looking at you, Joel. Actually, that was just one. I did one league where I was like, I'm going to take a shot on Joel Embiid. If this works, I'm going to win. And if it doesn't, that was a $50 league. A little bit of a throwaway, but anywho. Thanks for watching, everybody. Welcome to the off season. Monday through Friday, one show per day, 5 a week. We might have some days off because I'm a human and I'm tired. I'm Dan Bespris. That's the name. I'm Dan Bespris for Old Man Squad. Check us out if you haven't already. Thank you, all of you, for watching all season long. Here we go. Off season time. Just relax. We'll see you guys tomorrow.